with what could be a massive developing story regarding the reigning NFC champion San Francisco 49ers and one of their preeminent offensive weapons. As you are probably aware, Brandon Aiyuk has not practiced with the team in training camp as he awaits a new contract. It's one of these ever popular hold-ins. He wants to be paid like one of the top-level receivers in the NFL. It does not appear as though the 49ers view him as a situation where they're going to go there. So, as of last night, we had some new developments in this story, and they could be very significant. Jeff Darlington is my insider extraordinaire. Jeff, go.
Greeny, first and foremost, a very happy birthday. And for your birthday, I give you some salacious and delicious news when it comes to Brandon Aiyuk, because overnight, Matt Maiocco, a longtime beat reporter for the 49ers, reported that there is framework in place for a potential trade with multiple teams. Now, that includes the Browns and the Patriots. Now, let me unpack this for you because there's a lot to this. Now, our ESPN reporters are also all over this. The Browns have been interested for quite a while now. So too have the Patriots. But right now we're moving the chains a little bit forward because now it's about trade compensation and it's about the actual compensation to Brandon Aiyuk in the form of a new contract. Now this is where it gets especially interesting. Aiyuk still has the ability to completely squash all of this by simply saying, I don't like the contract offers from the Browns or the Patriots and stay with the 49ers. The 49ers too could squash this by saying, we don't like the trade compensation from the Browns or the Patriots. But the point here is the conversations are extremely intense right now. They are ongoing, and it does feel like, at least in this regard, we are moving towards some resolution when it comes to Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers.
Okay, yeah, I mean, phenomenal. Exactly what we've been talking about. Once they start talking about a trade, it almost feels as though you're activating the launch sequence, right? They've accepted in their own minds that this is the direction this is likely to go, so now they have to figure out how to do it. I want to underline, and Jeff, I'll let you do it as well, some of the things that you just said. Brandon Aiyuk does not have a no-trade clause in his contract, but for all intents and purposes, he might as well, because no team is going to give up the kind of compensation the 49ers are going to want in exchange unless they're going to be able to sign Aiyuk long-term as part of this deal, right, Jeff? So that's what you mean when you say Aiyuk has to like whatever contract it is the acquiring team is going to give him, and the 49ers need to like whatever the team is willing to give up in compensation. So we really have two major hurdles to jump over in order for a trade to get done.
Yeah, that's very true. This, in some ways, feels a little bit like Aiyuk is getting an early shot at free agency in the form of being able to negotiate a new contract with other teams, but he doesn't get to do it with every team because the Commanders, for instance, reportedly have backed out of their interest because they weren't willing to give up the trade compensation that the 49ers desire. So we do have multiple parts here in play, but the fact that the Patriots and the Browns have emerged at least shows you that the trade compensation is getting very close to being realistic. Can they also get the contract in line with what Aiyuk wants? That a very important play. And one final note, we are hearing that Amari Cooper of the Browns would potentially be involved in the trade with the 49ers should this wind up going down.
Fascinating. And again, that would make sense because you're the 49ers. You're on the doorstep of being a champion. You had the lead in overtime in the Super Bowl last year. So you're not looking to take a step backward. So it would make sense that they would want a good player to step into that. And very quickly, for those who don't know the history, the reason that the Commanders feel significant, once upon a time, Brandon Aiyuk and Jaden Daniels were teammates at Arizona State, and they remain very good friends. Okay, Domonique, first blush, first reaction.
Well, this feels like, honestly, an inevitable outcome because Brandon Aiyuk's advanced statistics suggest he's amongst the best in the league, but his production does not. So that tells me that the 49ers offense is not fully utilizing him, and we understand the type of players that it seems the Shanahan system, or at least the San Francisco version of the Shanahan system, prioritize. It's the versatile players, guys who can play running back and receiver like Debo and McCaffrey, guys like Kittle, who's a great blocker and a great receiver. Brandon Aiyuk is a traditional great X-receiver. Someone else is going to pay him top-of-the-league money to be that type of player. The 49ers is not that place. They pay top-of-the-league money for guys like versatile players like the running back and the tight end and the receivers that they've already built their offense around.
They also have an all-world offensive tackle they need to get paid.
Yeah.
at this point as well. They're having contract problems with him. And as I bring Tim in, Cindy, can we just put up A29 just to make sure everyone understands when Nick talks about production? I mean, here's the statistic he's talking about. Aiyuk is one of the best in the game at gaining yards, averaging 12.9 yards per target. That was the highest by any player since we started tracking this in 2006. So again, they don't go to him the way teams go to Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and these other guys. But when they do, he produces on that level, which makes me want to ask you, Tim Hasselbeck, maybe the simplest of questions. Should we view Aiyuk the way we view the top receivers in the NFL? I don't feel like we talk about him that way when we mention the very best guys in the sport. His name does not come up. Is he that level of good?
I think that he is, and I think in a different offense where he was, the complete focal. I think it would manifest itself that way in terms of targets and yards and all that. He's good at finding his way into the end zone. I would also just say this too. There have been reports.
We're obviously having some trouble. Let's put Timmy on hold there for a minute. This is TV in 2024, folks. You get it. Sometimes the signal goes down. We'll get Tim back up in a minute.
Even though I said it was an inevitable outcome, it's still somewhat surprising because I know if I had a team that I knew was this close to winning a Super Bowl, which the 49ers were, I think I would pay whatever it takes to keep that team together. So it does suggest that the 49ers might be in trouble going forward because there's no reason to believe that the receivers that they drafted can step in for Brandon Aiyuk. Because if you remember, Brandon Aiyuk had a slow start. There were rumors there that Kyle Shanahan was unhappy with Brandon Aiyuk when he first got there. So being a receiver in the Shanahan system sounds easy. I think it's probably a lot easier to be a quarterback in that system than it is to be a receiver in that system.
Here's the thing. If you were them, do you want to pay him? And these top-line receivers are getting $25, $26, $28 million. And if you do that, and all of a sudden Brock Purdy, who's been costing you like $17 an hour, next year is all of a sudden going to join the ranks of the highest-paid quarterbacks, that's where the problem lies.
I think it's a now versus future decision because I do think they increase their probability of winning a Super Bowl this year if they pay Brandon Aiyuk whatever it takes to get him on the roster. But yeah, there are going to be some tough decisions to make going forward because you're obviously going to pay Purdy when it's time to pay him also. You obviously got to pay Williams to get the tackle right. There are going to be some pieces lost, maybe off the defense, or some of those other dynamic playmakers have to go at a certain point. But I think this is just a matter of philosophy for John Lynch, the general manager there, where it's like, do we think our window is longer and lower the probability over the course of several seasons, or do we just want to go all in right now and try to win this year and then we pay the price in the future? It seems like that in large part because they like what they have in Purdy, that they're making a decision to take a slight step back or the potential slight step back at the receiver position in order to maybe prolong their championship window.
And I think Aiyuk is forcing the issue. Yeah. I mean, it's not as simple as that. Good, Jeff, go.
Those are the exact conversations that the 49ers have been having. Whether or not we need Aiyuk right now to pursue this Super Bowl run that we're seemingly on. And that's the reason why, by the way, Aiyuk is still on the roster. Because they do feel like if they can keep him on the roster this year for $14 million, they absolutely should do that, and they would prefer that outcome over getting trade compensation. But Aiyuk, to your point, has forced the hand, and not just in the form of essentially not practicing at 49ers training camp, but also, you mentioned $25, $26, $27 million a year. Keep going. Keep going higher, up to about $30 million and upwards of that. That's what Brandon Aiyuk is looking for here. This isn't like a lower-end contract, so I think it's important to keep in perspective. The 49ers would love to have him on the roster this year. It just does not, at this point, feel palatable or reasonable, and that's the reason they're in these conversations.
It's also interesting that it does not seem like there's a possibility to keep him on the roster this year. There were changes in the CBA that kind of eliminated the holdout, which kind of made us feel like, well, then players have to play out their contract if the team wants to. But the respect that they are showing to the hold-in or the respect that they're showing to Brandon Aiyuk is somewhat surprising me because we always thought that there was always that possibility, all right, we'll play him this year and we'll lose him for nothing next year. But that doesn't even seem like it's on the table for them. It feels like they really believe that this holding is something they have to respect, or they just want to treat Brandon Aiyuk with the respect that they think he deserves.
Well, and if I'm Brandon Aiyuk, it's not that complicated to me. I'm going to make $14 million this year. I'm going to play this season.
Right.
And if something terrible happens to me, which happens to football players all the time, I'm not a quarterback. I'm not Dak Prescott. They're not just going to pay me my money anyway. Jeff just said he's looking for 30. What is the highest receiver now? 28, something like that? The Jefferson contract, but whatever that number is. So I mean, we're talking, for times 5.
Right.
So if I'm Aiyuk, I'm like, all right, I need to go to New England and try and develop a young quarterback. All right, I'll do it because it's $140 million.
It seems like an obvious decision for Brandon Aiyuk, but I am a little shocked that the 49ers don't even have on the table that we're going to have a kind of play chicken with him and see if he is willing to sit out the whole season.
I don't know if